Outdoor pursuits instructor Ian Fox.
I know the area a bit, so that'll help me over some of the others who are not too sure of the rain and the mountains, so.
Last year's winner, Army PTI Jim Wood.
You can put your foot into a bog and then come up with no shoe or foot.
Pontypool and Wales Rugby Union scrum half David Bishop.
The boys are great, and they're helping me out as much as possible because it's all new to me.
All-round endurance athlete from Belfast, Peter Spence.
It's undoubtedly going to be tough, but that's the challenge of it, you know. I mean, don't make it easy.
Bath and England Rugby Union fullback Chris Martin.
If the weather really closes in, it gets really muddy. I think the little bit extra power could help.
British Olympic swimming team captain Robin Brew.
A lot of us are just going to be using brute strength and ignorance and ending up all over the shaft.
Twice a previous winner, Marine Bernie Shrewsbury.
It all suits me. The more harder it is, I think, the better I like it, really.
Dutch Marine Pete Albersberg.
Yeah, there's no hills in Holland. Holland is all flat. I think I'm glad when it's finished Friday.
And they all take part in the Britvic 55 Challenge.
So we come to event number 4, and we've stayed here for this on the banks of the River Tryweryn. Now, we saw how the competitors coped with the white water in the raft race, but if you thought that was difficult, then how about tackling it by swimming? Because that's what they've got to do next.
Yes, and I think all the competitors admit that this is the event they fear the most. However skilled they are, they're still going to come across obstacles on the riverbed. It should favour someone like Robin Brew, the British team's swimming captain. But I think it's going to be the man who's really going for it, who goes strongest for the middle of the river. And my tip as a dark horse would be for Chris Martin, the rugby player. But it's vitally important for Robin Brew to get a good result here. He's in second place at the moment, just behind Bernie Shrewsbury, who's won the competition twice. And everybody knows if you let Bernie Shrewsbury get away, then there's no chance of catching him. Now we're back to a mass start for this one. They start in the river, and it's the man who gets the best water first who's going to be down there first.
In the first section, the competitors get a deceptively safe passage down the unimpeded middle of the river. But from the first bend onwards, conventional swimming strokes will go by the board. For lying in wait are those rocks they all fear. Barricades of boulders just below the surface. Some as smooth as soap, others sharp as razors. No amount of padding can give total protection against the impact should bone and stone collide at this speed. Even sportsmen of the calibre of British Olympic swimming team captain Robin Brew must submit to the authority of this raging water.
Only the brave entered the Tryweryn River in full flood, but these men knew the dangers before they agreed to take part. It's possible to complete the course unscathed if you're hurtled immediately into the central stream, but it's more likely that you'll be buffeted into any one of 100 rocky obstacles. David Bishop is the first to meet misfortune. He's taken a bad knock and is already adrift at the back of the pack.
Bishop continues in pursuit with hardly a chance to draw breath between each painful plunge. Perhaps more by luck than design, swimmer Robin Brew is the man in front as they enter the home stretch. And now, notwithstanding bruised limbs and bursting lungs, it's a freestyle race to the finish.
With the injured Bishop still hanging on bravely in last place, it's the man who captained the British swimming team at the Los Angeles Olympics who's first to the bank. RAF PTI, Robin Brew. Second place should have gone to Dutch Marine Piet Olbersberg, but he hesitates and lets in Royal Marine Bernie Shrewsbury. Irishman Pete Spence and England rugby man Chris Martin are also quickly home and dry, forcing the unfortunate Dutchman back into 5th place. 6th and 7th places will go to Jim Wood and Ian Fox, but David Bishop, though fighting bravely, is in real trouble.
I'm lucky. I can swim reasonably well. I'm confident in the water, but there's rocks in there. These guys here, they're killing themselves. I mean, that's so courageous. I mean, I was lucky I could lift and snatch air when I needed it. These guys are bringing half the river in with them. Oh, it's a hard event, very hard.
Not much you can do in that event, really. I mean, people are swimming over each other. There's no sort of technique, really. It's just a surviving actual competition. Good effort by Robin. Obviously knows his water. Terrible event.
I wouldn't like to do it too often. I don't want to do it again.
Fitted out with shoulders like an American footballer, though. Did it help with the rocks?
I needed it, yeah. I only got one bad blow down there, and it was just in the hip. So I seemed to come off better than the rest of them. So a bit of blood there. And it's tough on the hands. You know, people don't appreciate that the river is very, very shallow.
Yeah.
And you just, you know, you're coming down there probably about 10 miles an hour and hitting things.
Chris, I don't have to say you're disappointed. You showed that at the finish.
Yeah, that's right. Slipped over twice, trying to mad scramble for the finish. But yeah, it was all right.
At one stage, halfway up the bank, you were in fact second, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Screwed up on the old slippery bank. Never mind.
I need some more luck, I think.
Yes,
Swimming is going okay, but indeed I can't come out of the water. I think I swim a little bit too far. And it's too slippery there. I think when I was here, I can come out easier. So just, okay, but tomorrow, yeah, another day.
Another day.
Tough event, Jim.
Yeah. Done the favourite again. I've banged bloody hips.
Yeah.
So,
One of those famous underwater rocks?
yeah, I'm afraid so. So it's a good day today, isn't it?
Not.
It only get better, can't it? It can't get any worse.
That was the one part that you hadn't padded up well.
No, I padded it up. I don't know how I've done it, or how I managed to bang it. Really, it's too painful. Though.
So you would be concerned about that with the other events coming up?
Yeah, hopefully it'll work its way out.
You must be a bit disappointed with a 7th place pushing you back down the field from that 3rd position.
Not 3 days to come yet. This is the worst day, so we'll see what happens later. It's pot luck in that water.
Sorry, the rock on the way down, you know, I just took it full on the side. Couldn't have made no difference to the race, but just took all the wind out of me.
Yeah.
And the survival of the fittest, the survival of the maddest.
It's a really tough event, that one.
I didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy that at all. I don't know, you can enjoy when you get in it, you know.
You took in a lot of the river as well, didn't you?
Yeah, as soon as I took a whack, just took the wind right out of me, you know, and I was padded up very well, but even my knee with the pads on took a bit down there. My thigh more than anything, yeah. I'll let the doctor have a look, yeah. Just think I've damaged the muscle, so. I'm just glad it's over.
These did count, and Robin Brew used his advantage to the full. As you can see, that takes him back into joint 1st place with Bernie Shrewsbury, and what a battle they're having. Bernie perhaps lucky to finish 2nd. He was 4th when they got to the bank, but he's competitive to the very end, and as the others slipped and floundered, he got to the line, and that's, of course, the all-important thing. Most of the competitors got away with just cuts and bruises. No long-term effects. Jim Wood's got a sore hip, but we did have one casualty. David, just when you thought that you were getting through the most difficult events, the whitewater swim finished you off. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, it was just in the middle of the race, I think. I come off on the bend, and I was trying to lay on my back. I was coming around the first S bend, I think. And I pushed off the one rock and just got swept into a rock I didn't even see. And it hit me with such power, you know, such force at the rock. It took me right over the top. And from there, really, I was just struggling all the way, you know. It was just like, at the time, an ordinary dead leg. But as soon as straight after, it was almost terrible pain, you know. I was with the doctors all last night, about 2 hours sleep. And it's come up, you know, to about 5 inches bigger than my other leg. So.
Doctor, was there any chance at all that David could continue?
Initially, possibly, but 2 or 3 hours after getting back, it was pretty obvious that if he did try, he wasn't going to do himself any good whatsoever, and he was optimistic. I was pretty certain he'd had his chips for the rest of it.
But for the other 7, the competition goes on. And the next event finds them here on the waters of Llyn Elsie, where they're racing against one another in open-top Canadian canoes. At the beginning of the race, they'd all be kneeling in their canoes, touching the reservoir wall. After that, it's a straight sprint across the water. It's a distance of approximately half a mile. They then beach the canoes down there on the little gravel inlet and race one another up here to the finishing line at the monument on the summit.
Although the experienced canoeists in the group will have some advantage in the matter of coordinating boat and paddle, these are very different to a kayak. This event also calls for strength and staying power, and to those men out there, the finish must seem a long, long way away.
There really is very little in it as they pass the first of the small islands and head for the open water. What wind there is, though, is pushing them all towards the right, and they're having to hug the western bank.
Also, in fairness, the downdraft from our helicopter is doing them no favours. But some are coping better than others. Pete Spence, the all-rounder from Belfast, is moving with great style. And Jim Wood is also going well.
As they enter the second of the narrow straits, the field is starting to spread a little, and trying to break away from the pack is the instructor from the local outdoor pursuit centre at Place Brennan, Ian Fox.
And it's Ian Fox's perfect demonstration of what canoeists call the J-stroke, which keeps him in the lead. But only just, for even the novice canoeists are sticking in there, and with half the course completed, the row for home is going to call for a lot of character. If they stay as closely packed as this, it's going to be some scramble up the bank at the end.
Peter Spence, the all-rounder from Ulster, has pulled out wide, whilst the threesome of Brew, Martin and Albersberg play follow the leader in perfect formation.
By now, paddling technique has been well and truly mastered, and on this, the last stage, it becomes simply a battle of will. Lungs are bursting, arms have long since gone numb, so it's now left to every man to draw on his reservoir of courage and determination. It's in situations like these that the very best is brought out of men like Bernie Shrewsbury of of the British Royal Marines. Considering the disparity of canoeing experience amongst the group, they're still remarkably evenly bunched. And although Ian Fox apparently still holds the lead, there's little between the front four as they square up for the finish.
Fox, on the right, will now have to worry about the men to his starboard. Robin Brew, the Olympic swimmer. The all-round outdoor man from Belfast, Peter Spence. And that determined young man from the Royal Marines, Bernie Shrewsbury.
As the flotilla finally glides into the beach, those weary arms can take a rest at last and let the legs take over. And it looks like a sprint out yet again between equal overall leaders on points, Shrewsbury and Brew. Ian Fox, though, is still there with them, and so's Pete Spence.
Leading the back three is England rugby man Chris Martin. No one could have predicted that a race of this sort would be decided by a fraction of a second, but that's all there is in it at the end, with Shrewsbury pipping Brew by the length of an arm. Well, all remaining 7 competitors survived an event newly introduced to survival of the fittest, a race which, as expected, was to require a mastery of the basic techniques of Canadian canoeing, combined with extreme muscular endurance.
But there was no special technique for that. It was sheer power. I mean, I was laying last at one point because the technique I was trying out was just no good, the proper Canadian paddling. I think Pete was the only one who could do it quite well as Ian. But I found I just alternated each side. It's the only way.
Well, there did seem to be a lot of changing of position over that lake. I mean, at one stage, you seemed to be well down the back as well, Robin.
Yeah, I was having a bit of a battle with Chris there. We were belting each other with the paddles. It was good fun, but...
You did look as if you were locked together. Whatever you did,
That's
you seemed
right.
to come back together.
He said to me, paddle on the right, I'll paddle on the left. So we're going together for a bit. But then we had to break away because we just weren't getting anywhere.
Satisfied,
No, not at all.
What's the problem?
I thought I was doing quite well. Took the helicopter flew in, and you get a back wave or a front wave coming against you. Yeah, it's harder to paddle into that. It allowed the others off. Well, I thought I was doing all right on the paddling. Seemed to allow the others to sneak up on the inside.
Were you in the lead at the start?
I thought I was pretty well up there, yeah.
Coming in there at the end, I just hoped that they didn't know to jump out of the boats, because that was going to be sort of for us saving my energy for, but I thought they were going to come alongside and try to get out slower. Especially the last 25 feet. I thought it maybe would have been able to jump out and sprint up the bank, but they're very competitive.
So you sound disappointed with that fall?
Yeah, I think I should have really had that, you know.
I just seemed to lose it a lot, just about 3/4 of the way, because I thought I was going to be all right, because I kept up Pete for about halfway, and I thought it'd be okay. And then I think I panicked when I saw some people coming up on me, and then sort of stroke technique went for a ball of chop, and it was just get the paddle in as quick as it could. And I don't think it was very effective.
Chris, when we talk about people being locked in battle, we don't expect them to be using the paddles as weapons.
Well, actually, I was thinking about tipping him in, but he probably would have jumped out and started swimming and towing the boat, and he would have beaten everybody anyway. So just lack of technique in the end.
Somebody's got to be the last one, so it's me today for this event. The beginning of the start was okay, but half of the leg we kept not so much space anymore because we fight for 3 or 4 canoes for a place. So.
And you lost some ground there.
I lost some ground.
So the next event you're hoping for?
We do our best.
So 5 events completed in our competition so far. And at this stage, the scoreboard makes interesting reading because the 2 leaders, Bernie Shrewsbury and Robin Brew, with 1 point between them, have opened up an enormous gap before we come to the 3rd man. And that's Ian Fox, who's a mountaineer and an outdoor pursuits instructor here in North Wales. Peter Spence from Northern Ireland has amassed 22 points. Then tying together with 18 each, we have the Dutch Marine, Peter Albersberg, and the English rugby international, Christopher Martin. Jim Wood, the Army PTI, has 17 points, and the Welsh rugby star, David Bishop, just 3 points. The reason for that, of course, is that sadly he's had to drop out of the competition. He sustained a bad leg injury in the whitewater swim.
So halfway through the competition, with 5 rigorous events behind them, Robin Brew has emerged as a definite contender for the title. But he has to beat the renowned Bernie Shrewsbury, already twice a winner in previous years. In the first event, Brew had an early lead from the lake and river sections, but he had difficulty in shaking off the attentions of Royal Marine Bernie Shrewsbury once they'd strapped on those heavy backpacks. At one point, it looked as if the Marine might catch the RAF man on the rain-swept cliff. But Brew fought off the challenge to claim his maximum 8 points for first place.
Come on, Bernie.
Some friendly rivalry had developed by now, and it brought out the best from the men. There was to be much courage on display as well as skill, and Bernie turned it on for the abseil. But good though Bernie's abseil was, it was Ian Fox's excellent approach work which gave him the verdict in the abseil event. Fox, Brew and Shrewsbury now shared the lead.
The raft race should have provided some light relief, but instead there were some scary moments, especially for David Bishop, whose lungs took in a lot of water. Jim Wood had expected to do better, but after seeing Chris Martin go past, he suffered a similar fate to that of Bishop. Robin Brew's raft adventure was the most spectacular. His mishap was caused by his raft snagging a sharp rock and suddenly deflating. Robin, though, carried on with much tenacity and great aplomb. The disaster was deemed to have been caused by technical failure, and therefore no fault of Robin's. He was duly given the chance of a rerun and finished second, Bernie Shrewsbury winning and taking the overall lead.
Then came the whitewater swim down the same stretch of the raging Tryweryn River. This was the event regarded with most apprehension by the competitors before the competition began. Their fears were well founded, because none of the men escaped without some injury or discomfort. Of all the events, this is the one where they felt they were in most danger. Brew and Shrewsbury again led the field, but the event put paid to the hopes of David Bishop. He received a bad thigh injury, forcing him to withdraw from the competition.
In the next event at Llanelsi, the 7 remaining competitors cope well with the Canadian canoes, which normally take some getting used to. They crossed the lake in a fairly close bunch, but at the end, it was those 2 men again.
Next time out, they tackle the ropes course. This year, it's tougher than ever, with a really perilous postman's walk and an ingenious challenge they call the budgie perch.
And it's not just rope work. They have to get very wet as well.